Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the court of the Edijester. How are we, good people? Oh dear. Oh my. Oh me, oh my, oh. What the bloody hell's going on? I ask myself as I sit here and ponder on the article from the Telegraph. Before we start, please like, subscribe, join my Substack if you want me to keep going. It's that simple. Join my Substack if you want me to keep going. And Warrior Teacher starting in September if you want to join us. Use the links below as per normal. I saw the Warrior Teachers yesterday, so I was teaching. My teaching weeks begin. Always great to see them. Always great to see them, and of course, because of the shenanigans of the last few days, plenty to talk about. Plenty to talk about. Then I wake up this morning to an article from Dominic Penham, the political correspondent for the Telegraph, in which he begins to warn us, and warning it most certainly is, that Labour have been, or will be, bringing in a definition of Islamophobia, which they would bring in incrementally, by the way. So be aware of that first of all. The article says Labour warned over attempt to define Islamophobia. Previous efforts by politicians to adopt a legal term have been labelled an affront to free speech. Labour is considering adopting a controversial definition of Islamophobia, despite warnings it can harm free speech. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner, his deputy, are weighing up a range of views about whether to introduce an agreed description of anti-Muslim prejudice. A definition of Islamophobia would not be legally binding, but organisations will be urged to adopt in a similar way to the anti-Semitism definition accepted under Theresa May in 2016. Campaigners say the concept must be clearly codified amid rising prejudice towards Muslims, including attacks targeted at mosques in the wake of the Southport killing last week. Critics fear it could amount to a blasphemy law, and senior Conservatives have insisted it must not be allowed to stifle legitimate criticism of Islam. In opposition, Labour supported the adoption of a definition of Islamophobia drawn up by an all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims, while Wes Streeting, now the Health Secretary, was its chairman. The definition states Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Miss Rayner's department, the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government, said it was committed to tackling all forms of hatred, including Islamophobia. Asked if it will adopt a working definition, it said will take into account a range of views and outline any updates on the government's position in relation to this in due course. It's quite extraordinary. It's quite extraordinary to think that they're even doing this. But it's the boiling frog. We've been subject to the boiling frog. Let's do more on that in a minute. Lord Pickles, a former community secretary, told the Telegraph a definition of anti-Muslim hatred or Islamophobia is a very good idea and everybody agrees it should be done. No, I don't. I don't agree it should be done at all. And I'll tell you why I don't agree it should be done at all. Because this is simply another step to a censorious, overarching, overreaching government and state. That's why. We're going in the wrong direction. Now, we've seen all the rioting and throwing of things and the threats. I mean, that Labour bloke made a threat about having everybody's throat cut and did this, right? And then you've got the far right who've been burning things and throwing bricks at police officers and all sorts of bloody nonsense. The first of whom we're beginning to see prosecuted, but from what I can see so far, and this is so far because I'm no doubt there's more to come, it seems to be a bunch of kids that got caught up in nonsense, as one of them is 15, one's 16 and the other one's 18. Now they put another one who was 45 in jail, and they were very, very sort of really fluffy about why he went, other than he'd shouted at them. This is dangerous territory, folks. And the Warrior Teachers were saying to me yesterday, there's something strange about the whole thing. The whole thing feels unreal. It feels unreal. And to the extent where some were saying it feels, but it's by design. I don't imagine it's by design, right? I don't. And we have to remind ourselves as Warrior Teachers, don't get caught up in conspiracy theories and nonsense like that. But to me, this isn't about any of that. Like, we can do all that. We can all go, oh, it's the aliens. The aliens did it. It's E.T.'s fault. Find him. These hidden sort of... No, forget all that. The simple fact of the matter is we're going in the wrong direction. The government should not be organising hate speech laws. We will crack down on all hate. Why? Mind your own damn business. I'll hate who I like. I'll hate who I like, right? And the people that I hate, right, which are very, very few and far between, are usually people I hate for a very good reason. You know why? Because I'm a reasonable man and I'm an adult. It is not the job of the state to interfere in the emotional reactions of the populace. It is the job of the state to police without fear and favour, and to do so evenly. I not only think there shouldn't be an Islamophobia law, it's time to get rid of all hate crime, all hate speech laws. It's time to get rid of all of them. The answer to hate speech is not government control. The answer to hate speech is more speech. This is what the warrior teachers are now predominantly considering as an important part of what they do. The fight to maintain and keep free speech. But you're going to lose it. You're going to lose it, A, because people who voted Labour voted for it. You voted for authoritarian, toxic parents, and that's what you've got. We've now got a Prime Minister who doesn't understand he's a Prime Minister and still thinks he's leading the Labour Party. It's like student politics. He's a middle manager, that's all he is. And we haven't yet got a Tory leader that can say any different. And then we've got Nigel Farage, who's been open to all sorts of nonsense and has said all sorts of nonsense. It's a mess. It's a mess. But the one thing I know for absolute certainty is that you're either for freedom or you're for oppression, slavery, right? It's not even oppression, it's going to be slavery. We need to get rid of all hate speech laws. We need to get rid of as many laws as possible so that the state stays out of people's lives. We do. Let people get on with it. We need to stop thinking about things on racial lines and sexuality lines. We need to stop it because hate speech laws are intersectional. Well, that hate is worse than this hate. They're more important than they are. And this is what the police are doing. We also need to get the police out of the community business. This is the community, right? This is the gay community. This is the Jewish community, right? There are no communities. There are only Brits. If you are in this country legally and you are taking and participating in the commerce of this country, in the social life of this country, in the cultural fabric of this country, you are British first. And people seem to have forgotten they are British. Where you're from is immaterial. Your ethnicity is immaterial. You are British first. That's what you are. And Brits don't do authoritarian censorship. It's that simple. So when you're rioting through the streets, if you come from the so-called Muslim community or you come from the far right, I don't care. If you do something that is against the law, you should feel the full force of the law, regardless of which community you're in, regardless of the colour of your skin. I don't care about community. It's a nonsense word and it needs to stop being used. And the police need to stop saying, we are meeting with the community. You're not there to meet with the community. You are there to enforce the laws of the land. And if we're unlucky enough to let this Labour government go unfettered, then laws of the land will mean it will only be a very short time before you can't speak, before you can't say what you need to say about immigration, before you can't say what you need to say about the worst excesses of Islam, or you can't say what you want to say about the Islamists being to Islam what Christianity is to the KKK. Right? So Islamists, KKK, Nazis, it's the same thing. Right? Authoritarian, dangerous, misogynistic, homophobic, violent. The police do not need to care about communities. End of story. We don't liaise with the police. We call them when we need them and they turn up and they take away the wrongdoer. Within no time at all, you won't have just two-tiered policing. You will have intersectional policing. And believe me, you really don't want that. You don't. And yet, so many people sat there and voted Labour. Labour didn't get any more votes, but people voted Labour. Because it's obvious to me that the lessons of the 20th century were never learned. Never learned. Strange times indeed, people. But keep going, take heart. The Brits are good at getting themselves out of trouble. Let's just hope we can this time. I'll see you later. Bye.